The hardest working leaders are often the least effective ones, not because they lack skill, not because they lack commitment, but because somewhere along the way, doing more becomes a substitute for leading better. Gallup's 2025 report put the cost of that substitution at $8.8 trillion a year. 9% of everything the global economy produces vanished because leaders are doing work that was never theirs to do. In this video, I'm going to show you why that happens and what the leaders who have actually solved it do that most leaders never figure out. November 14th, 1943, Carnegie Hall, New York City, sold out crowd. The scheduled conductor, Bruno Walter, falls ill that morning. No time to counsel, no time to find someone with experience. So they call a 25-year-old, a complete unknown, someone no one in that audience had heard of. His name was Leonard Bernstein. He had never conducted the New York Philharmonic before, never rehearsed with them. He walked out onto that stage, probably doubting himself, and yet he delivered a performance so extraordinary that the New York Times ran it on the front page the next morning. But here is what I want you to sit with, because this is the part most people completely missed. Bernstein didn't play a single instrument that night. He made no sound at all, and that is exactly what made him unforgettable. Now, think about that for a second. He was surrounded by some of the finest musicians in the world, and his job, his entire contribution, was to shape what they produced without producing a single note himself. That is leadership at its highest form. Now, contrast that with how most leaders actually operate. They show up first. They stay latest. They are in every thread, every meeting, every decision. They jump into problems before their team has had a chance to think, and they call it leadership. I want to say this as directly as I can. That is not leadership. That is doing. And the higher you go, the more dangerous that habit becomes. In coaching emerging leaders, the pattern I see most consistently is this. The shift from doing to leading is the one transition most leaders intellectually understand and almost never fully make. Peter Drucker put it this way decades ago, and it is still one of the most ignored truths in leadership. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. The hardworking leaders, who also happen to be the least effective ones, weren't lazy. They were skilled. They were disciplined. They were just still playing instruments in an orchestra that needed a conductor. And here is where it gets interesting, because the reason most leaders can make the shift isn't what you think. Most people assume it is a time problem, or a trust problem, or a team problem. It is none of those things. Those are symptoms. The real problems runs deeper, and we are going to get to it in a moment. But first, let me show you what the shift actually produces when a leader gets it right. Phil Jackson coached the Chicago Bulls and the LA Lakers to a combined 11 NBA championships. 11. Please pay attention to how he described his own role. He said, quote, "Once I stopped trying to force my will on my players and started trusting them to lead themselves, that is when everything changed," unquote. A man who won more championships than almost anyone in professional sport history. And his secret was learning to be quiet. Sound familiar? Now, the reason most leaders can't make that shift from player to conductor isn't a skill gap. I want to be really clear about that. It is an identity gap. It is about how you see yourself as a leader, what you believe your value is, what you think you're supposed to be doing every day. And most leaders have never actually examined that. That is exactly what the leader identity audit is designed to do. It is free. It only takes 10 minutes, even less. And it gives you a clear picture of where your leadership identity is strong and where you have blind spots you probably don't even know are costing you. Grab it using the link in the description below. Now let's go deeper. Here is the identity trap that catches almost every high performer who gets promoted into leadership. You got to where you are because you are the best at doing the work. You were fast, sharp, and reliable. You solved problems better than anyone else in the room, and that got you promoted. But then something shifts, and nobody tells you about it. The skill that got you here will hold you back from what comes next unless you change who you believe you are. Bernstein understood this instinctively. Before that Carnegie Hall debut, he had already spent years studying every instrument in the orchestra. He knew the violin, he knew the oboe, he knew the brass. But the moment he stepped onto that podium, he made a choice. He chose to become the shaper of sound rather than the producer of it. That is not a tactical decision. That is an identity decision. So, what does this actually look like in practice? Think about the last time someone on your team came to you with a problem. What did you do? If you're like most leaders, especially high performers, you solved it efficiently. You probably even felt good about it. And in doing that, you just stole their growth. Not intentionally, but the effect is the same. Here is the principle I come back to constantly in my coaching work. Every time you solve a problem for someone who could have solved it themselves, you are not leading, you are limiting. The conductor doesn't run onto the stage when the violins miss a note. He shapes the environment so the violins don't miss notes. And if they do, he trusts the rehearsal he created to carry them through it. Now, forget the podium. Forget the court. I want to take you somewhere most people will never think to look for a leadership lesson. April 1970, Apollo 13. 56 hours into the mission, an oxygen tank explodes. The spacecraft is crippled. 3 astronauts are suddenly 200,000 miles from Earth with no guarantee they are coming home. And Gene Kranz, the flight director, makes a decision in that moment that almost no leader in that situation will make. He walks into mission control, looks at his team and says, failure is not an option. But it is not the quote that matters. It is what he did after it. He stepped back. He organized his team. He gave each group a defined problem to solve. And then he got out of their way. He didn't solve the reentry problem himself. He didn't solve the power problem himself. He conducted the solution. 3 astronauts came home because a leader knew when to stop playing the instrument. This is what the shift looks like at every level. From a 25-year-old walking into Carnegie Hall, to an NBA coach with 11 rings, to a flight director with the weight of 3 lives on his hands. The pattern is the same. They each had to let go of being the best performer in the room and become the person who makes everyone else perform at their best. So here is your work this week. One question, just one. Where in your leadership are you still playing the instrument? When you should be conducting the sound? Pick one thing, one recurring task, one type of decision, one problem you keep solving yourself, and ask, is someone on my team capable of owning this or developing into owning it? If the answer is yes, or even maybe, your job isn't to keep solving it. Your job is to start shaping the conditions for them to solve it. That is the shift. That is what Bernstein did. That is what Phil Jackson did. That is what Gene Kranz did. And it starts not with a new system, but with a new way of seeing yourself. Now, knowing you need to make these shifts is one thing. Knowing exactly how to do it step by step with a specific person on your team in a specific situation, that is a different conversation. Because here is what I see constantly. Leaders who understand the philosophy but still can't let go in the moment. Not because they don't want to, but because they've never had a clear map for moving someone from depending on them to fully owning their work. That map exists. It has 5 levels. And it is the most practical things I've ever put in front of a leader. How do you actually move someone from dependent to fully owning their work? Step by step. That is exactly what I will be sharing next Tuesday. Subscribe and share if you haven't yet. Have you ever wondered why some leaders scale faster while others stay trapped in burnout and bottlenecks? Gallup found that CEOs with strong delegation skills achieved growth rate 112 percentage points higher than those with low delegator talent. Yet, many managers still struggle to hand things off effectively. In today's video, I'm going to walk through the 5-level framework I call the Conductor's Ladder. By the end, you will know exactly where every person on your team stands and exactly how to lead them to the next level. If you watched the last video, you know the core shift from player to conductor, from doing to shaping. But here is what I didn't tell you yet. Bernstein didn't walk onto the Carnegie Hall stage as a stranger to orchestras. For years before that debut, he had been studying, teaching, demonstrating, coaching musicians at every level. He understood exactly what it took to move someone from needing direction to performing with full ownership. He had, without knowing it, developed what I call the Conductor's Ladder. Now, here is the delegation mistake I see over and over again. A leader has something they need to hand off. They explain it once, quickly, and walk away expecting it to be done. It either comes back wrong or it doesn't come back at all, and they end up doing it themselves. And then they say the thing that kills teams. It is just faster if I do it myself. Every single time a leader says those words, they put a ceiling on what their team can ever become, and they lower the floor on their own impact. The problem isn't your team's ability. The problem is that you skipped steps on the ladder. You went from level 1 straight to level 5 and wondered why they couldn't fly without ever learning to climb. Before we go into the ladder, I want to say this. The reason most leaders skip steps isn't impatience. It is that they haven't done the inner work to understand what version of themselves is required at each level. That work starts with knowing who you are as a leader right now. And you can access yourself right now using the Leader Identity Audit. It is free, takes less than 10 minutes, and it will give you a clear picture of where your leadership identity is strong and where your blind spots are. Those blind spots are exactly what gets you stuck on the ladder. The link is in the description. Now, let us climb the ladder. I want you to picture someone on your team right now. Maybe someone new, maybe someone you've been trying to develop. Hold that person in your mind as we go through this. Every person on your team is somewhere on this 5-level ladder. Your job as a leader is to know exactly where they are and to move them up intentionally one level at a time. So, level number 1, it is TELL, T-E-L-L. This is the foundation. Before anything else, this person needs complete clarity, not a rough idea, a very defined outcome. What does done look like? What are the boundaries? What does success actually mean for this particular task? Your role here is director. You are not coaching yet, you are defining. Vince Lombardi, who won 5 NFL championships, built his entire system on this principle. He was famous for drilling the fundamentals so completely that every player knew exactly what was expected before a single play was run. Not because he didn't trust them, because clarity is the foundation trust is built on. The trap at this level, it is assigning the task without assigning the standard. You think you gave them a goal, they think they got a task. Those are completely different things. Level 2 is teach. Now you can show them, not just the steps, the thinking behind the steps. You are not transferring instructions here. You are transferring understanding. Toyota built the most consistently excellent manufacturing operation in history on this principle. They call it the Toyota Kata. Supervisors don't just tell workers what to do. They demonstrate, explain their reasoning, and then ask questions to make sure their understanding is transferred. It is not just talking about action, but the mental model behind it. Your role here is instructor. The trap though, it is showing someone once and assuming they got it. They watched it. That is not the same as understanding it. Level number 3, it is try, T-R-Y. This is where most leaders struggle the most and where most teams stop growing. And I don't want you to miss it. What you need here is guided execution. Here's the key: guided. Underline guided if you are taking notes. You let them attempt it for real and you stay nearby, but do not take over. Even when it gets uncomfortable, even when you can see that they're about to make a mistake, you already know how to fix. This is critical because here is what I know from coaching emerging leaders. The moment you jump in too early, you send a message that you don't actually believe they can do it. And people become what they're expected to become. Your role here is coach. You observe, you ask questions, and you correct. But you do not take over. Very important. You do not take over. You let them struggle. That is where the growth lives. Next level, trust. 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 Now you step back. They own the process. You focus on outcomes, not method. You give them space to make decisions, even decisions you might have made differently. Netflix built their entire culture on this principle. They call it context, not control. For every major project, they name an informed captain, one person fully responsible for the outcome, and then they get out of the way. They trust the context they've built. Your role here is observer. And here's the identity challenge this level surfaces. If your sense of value as a leader is tied to being needed, to having answers, to being in the room, level 4 is going to feel wrong. It is going to feel like you are not doing your job. But be reassured, you are doing a great job. You are doing the highest version of it. Last but not least, level 5, transfer. This is where we give full ownership. They make decisions without you. They solve problems without you. They handle conflicts without you. And here is how you know you have actually reached level 5 with someone. They start developing others. They become the conductor for someone coming up behind them. Zappos built an entire company culture on this. People who don't just own tasks, but own roles, own standards, own the growth of the people around them. Your role here is architect. You are no longer building outcomes. You are building the people who build outcomes. And most leaders never reach this level. Not because their team isn't capable, but because they never move through levels 2, 3, and 4 with enough intention. Very key, intention. They skip the rehearsal, and you cannot shortcut the ladder. I do want to leave you with this. Most leaders live at level 3. They get someone to the point where they can execute the task with guidance, and they call it delegation. That is not delegation. That is supervised execution. Good leaders reach level 4, but great leaders build level 5. And the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be on that ladder is almost never a skill gap. It is an identity gap. It is about who you believe you are supposed to be as a leader and whether that identity has room for a version of you that trusts more than it controls. Now, here is your assignment for this week. Very simple, very specific. Pick one person on your team, the one you've been meaning to develop, the one you keep taking things back from. Honestly identify what level they are currently on, and then do one thing. Show up as the version of you that is required at that level. Not the level below it, not the level above it, that exact level. If they are at tell, give them the clearest definition of success you've ever given anyone. If they are at teach, show the thinking, not the task. If they are at try, stay in the room but keep your hands off. If they are at trust, actually step back. Track the outcomes, not the activities. If they are at transfer, celebrate it and ask them who they are developing. Here you go. You now have the ladder. You know the 5 levels. You know your role at each one. But here is what I haven't told you yet. The conductor's ladder is how you develop one person. What happens when you have 8 or 15 or an entire organization? How do you build a system a full operating structure so that leadership development, delegation, and high performance happen consistently across your entire team, not just when you are in the room. That is what the third and final video in this series is about. Here is a question most leaders won't answer out loud. If you vanished for 2 weeks, does your team move forward or do they wait for you? If they wait, you don't have a leadership problem. You have a system problem. McKinsey research found that leaders who fix it dramatically outperform everyone else by up to 21 times over 5 years. This video shows you exactly how. We have talked about Bernstein on the podium. We have talked about the identity shift and the 5 levels of developing people. But here is the part of Bernstein's story most people never know. He didn't just conduct orchestras. He spent decades building something much larger. His Young People's Concert at Carnegie Hall ran for 14 years. He created a television series that introduced classical music to millions of Americans who had never set foot in a concert hall. He trained conductors. He built educational programs. He shaped an entire generation's relationship with music. Bernstein didn't just perform. He built an institution. He stopped being the best musician in the room. He became the architect of rooms where musicians became their best. That is exactly what the Maestro Operating System is built to help you do. Before we go into the system, one more time, and I mean it every time I say it, a system is only as strong as the identity of the leader who built it. If you haven't taken the leader identity audit yet, that is your first step. Not the system, the self-knowledge. The leader identity audit is free. It will take you less than 10 minutes to complete. It will show you exactly where your leadership identity is solid and where the cracks are that quietly undermine everything you're trying to build. The link is in the description. Now, let us talk about the Maestro Operating System. It has 5 components. Like the ladder, they are sequential. Each one builds on the last. Number 1, we have the score. Number 2, the sections. Number 3, the rehearsal. Number 4, the performance. And number 5, the audience. So, component number 1, the score. What are we trying to create? What does success sound like before a single note is played? A conductor walks into every rehearsal having already heard the piece in their mind, the tempo, the dynamics, the resolution. The score is not just music on a page. It is a complete picture of the intended experience. Before a conductor asks anything of the musicians, they are fully clear on where they are going. As a leader, your score is your vision, not a vague direction, not a mission statement on your wall. It is a felt sense of what success actually looks and feels like for your team, specific enough that anyone on your team could describe it without you in the room. If your team cannot describe the vision without you, you do not have a score. You have a direction, and directions require the person who gave them to always be present. But a vision without the right people in the right roles is just beautiful sheet music sitting on a piano. No one is playing, which leads to component number 2, the sections. Who owns what? And do they actually know it is theirs? That's very important. An orchestra is structured into sections. Each section has a principal. The conductor does not manage every individual musician. They lead the principals who lead their sections. If you are directly managing every person on your team, you are not conducting. You are a bottleneck with a job title. Netflix built their entire organizational model on clear ownership. For every significant area of work, one person has full accountability, not a committee, not a shared responsibility. One informed captain who has clear ownership. The leader sets context. Then he or she steps back. Your question here is simple. Does every area of your work have one clear owner? And does that person know without ambiguity that it is theirs? Ownership without clarity creates anxiety, and clarity without ownership creates dependence. You need both. Now, component 3, the rehearsal. Where do people practice before it counts? This is the most skipped component in leadership, and it is one that makes everything else possible. Orchestras do not perform without rehearsing, but most leaders expect performance level results on the first attempt. They hand someone a task, walk away, and are surprised when it comes back wrong. And because there was no rehearsal built into the system, the only option are to take it back or accept substandard work. Toyota solved this problem and built the most consistently excellent manufacturing culture in modern history because of it. Their entire coaching model is built around cycles of attempt, feedback, and adjustment, with a coach in the room, of course, before it counts. As a leader, the question is, where in your team's workflow is there genuine rehearsal space, a place to try, to fail, get corrected, and try again without it becoming a crisis? If the answer is nowhere, that is why your team keeps needing you to solve things. You have skipped the rehearsal and gone straight to the performance. Okay, you have the vision. You have clear owners. You have built rehearsal into the system. Now comes the moment it all comes together, which is component number 4, the performance. What is your role when it matters most? When performance time comes, a great conductor does not run onto the stage and start playing the cello because they are nervous. They trust the rehearsal, the guide in real time, a gesture here, a tempo shift there, but they are not executing, they are elevating. Your role during your team's highest pressure moment is not to solve. It is to be calm, to have a clear judgment. It is to give the occasional precise intervention and the restraint to know the difference between a moment that needs your hand and a moment that needs your silence. Be the second kind of leader. Last but not least, component number 5, the audience. Who are you serving? What experience are they actually having? The entire reason an orchestra exists is the audience. Every decision, tempo, dynamics, program selection is in service of the experience someone else is going to have. And yet, this is the component leaders most often forget when they get deep into building systems and developing people. In Bernstein young people concerts, he would look at a room full of children and ask, what do they need from me today? Not, what do I want to teach? What do they need to receive? That question, what does my audience need from my leadership right now, is the one that keeps every other component honest. When you forget who you are serving, the system begins serving itself. Here is what I want you to see now that we have worked through all 3 videos together. Video 1 was about who you need to become, the shift from player to conductor. Video number 2 was about how you develop each person one level at a time. This video is about how you build the environment where all of it happens consistently at scale without requiring your constant presence. The videos map to identity, individual development, and organizational system. These 3 things together, that is what makes a leader, an institution. Bernstein didn't just give one great performance. He left behind educators, audiences, musicians, conductors, a body of work that continued long after he left any specific stage. That is the standard, not just a great leader, a leader whose impact outlasts their presence in any given room. Don't just build a great team, build a team that builds great teams. Now, think about this 5-question diagnostic, one for each component. Number 1, we talked about the score. Can everyone on your team describe the vision without you in the room? Number 2, the sections. Does every area of your work have one clear owner who knows it is theirs? Number 3, the rehearsal. Where does your team get to try, fail, and learn safely before it counts. Number 4, the performance. In high pressure moments, do you elevate your team or do you take over? Number 5, the audience. When did you last ask who you are serving and whether they are actually experiencing your leadership as a gift? Wherever you felt the most discomfort in those 5 questions, that is your next area of work. If you have watched all 3 videos in this series, I want to say this directly. The fact that you are here means something. It means you are not satisfied with good enough. You are after something more durable. Leadership that multiplies, that sustains, that outlasts you in any given role or room. That work starts with identity. It deepens through how you develop your people, and it scales through how you build your system. You now have all 3. If you haven't watched video number 1 yet, that is where everything starts. And the leader identity audit is in the description. Use it. It is the most honest 10 minutes you'll spend on your leadership this year. Thank you for watching. Go conduct something great. God bless.